All right, so let's imagine a world where the Louisiana Purchase never happened.
Wow.
Right. We could all be like speaking French right now.
Yeah, that's a wild thought, isn't it?
It is wild, and that's how close it came
Yeah.
because of this one guy,
Yeah.
Napoleon Bonaparte, and his ambitions.
It really is incredible how just one man's ambitions could have reshaped the whole world.
Exactly.
And today, we're going to really unpack Napoleon's rise to power. It's a story full of intrigue, military brilliance, and of course,
Of course.
that signature Napoleonic ambition.
Okay, so to really grasp the magnitude of what this guy pulled off, we need to set the scene right.
Yeah.
Picture France right after the French Revolution.
Yeah.
The economy is in shambles, the government's on the verge of collapse, and the people are just desperate for some stability.
Yeah, it's like a classic power vacuum scenario.
Totally.
And Napoleon, a young general fresh off some amazing victories in Egypt, returns to France not just as a military hero, but as a beacon of hope for a nation that's desperate. Oh, yeah?
For strong leadership.
Okay, so we've got this charismatic general stepping onto a stage that's just totally primed for a power grab.
Right.
But how does he actually seize control?
Well, it all starts with a very meticulously planned coup.
Okay.
The coup of 18 Brumaire, a masterclass in political maneuvering and opportunism.
All right.
But to understand how this unfolded, we need to understand the government that was already in place.
Okay.
The Directory.
The director, give me the rundown on that.
Sure.
Was it as bad as it sounds?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Imagine a government with 5 directors, 2 legislative bodies,
Okay.
all jockeying for power, constantly undermining each other.
Oh, so it was just a mess.
A recipe for gridlock and instability.
Okay, so the government's tripping over its own feet, which is a perfect opportunity for someone like Napoleon
Exactly.
to come in.
He saw the weakness,
Yeah.
and along with a key collaborator,
Okay.
Abby Size,
Mm-hmm.
he devised a plan to exploit it. And
Right, this is where it gets good.
this is where the coup gets really fascinating. Give me the play-by-play.
Okay, so the first day of the coup was all about getting the legislative bodies out of Paris, where they posed the biggest threat to Napoleon's plan.
Get him out of there.
They used the specter of a Jacobin uprising.
Oh, so they're using fear?
A little fear-mongering to get those key players out of the way.
However.
Clever indeed, but day 2 is where things really heat up.
Okay, so day 2, what happens?
Napoleon, with a group of soldiers at his back, marches into the Council of 500,
Okay.
one of the legislative bodies,
Yeah, right.
to try and intimidate them into accepting his authority.
Right.
But
I'm guessing this backfires.
this bold move backfires spectacularly.
Yeah, when you march in with soldiers, people tend to not like
Yeah, they weren't thrilled.
No.
In fact, things got so heated that Napoleon was nearly declared an outlaw right then and there.
Okay, hold on, wait a minute. Back, I need some context here.
Sure.
Who were these Jacobins?
So the Jacobins.
And why were they such a threat?
They were a radical political group
Okay.
who rose to prominence during the French Revolution,
Okay.
known for their extreme views, their willingness to use violence, and their role in the Reign of Terror.
So invoking the Jacobins, that would strike fear into anyone's heart.
Exactly, especially those who remembered the chaos and bloodshed of that period.
Okay, so that makes sense. So Napoleon uses this fear to manipulate the legislators, but then things go sideways. He's almost declared an outlaw.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, his brother, Lucien, who just happened to be the head of the council,
Okay.
steps in and masterfully stalls the vote.
Well,
That would have condemned Napoleon. He buys him some precious time, and that's when we see Napoleon's genius for turning near disaster into a PR triumph.
okay, I gotta hear, how does he pull that off?
So Napoleon, looking shaken and disheveled after this confrontation, emerges kind of as a victim
Oh, wow.
of the very people he was trying to save.
Yeah, that's smart.
And Lucien sees this opportunity and rallies the troops, painting Napoleon as a hero unjustly attacked
Wow.
by those who refuse to see the need for strong leadership.
Talk about a spin.
Quite a turnaround.
So he goes from almost outlawed to being the savior in just a few hours.
Exactly. And with the troops now firmly on his side,
Yeah.
he seizes the moment they storm the council chambers, effectively ending the Directory
Wow.
and paving the way for the consulate.
Yeah.
A new government with Napoleon at its head.
As first consul.
As first consul. But hold on a minute.
Okay.
Wasn't the consulate supposed to have 3 consuls? How does he manage to snag the lion's share of the power?
Yeah. How does he do that?
That's where Napoleon's strategic brilliance shines through. He orchestrates what some historians call a coup within a coup.
A coup within a coup. Okay, you got to tell me more.
So through some shrewd manipulation of the new constitution,
Okay.
he ensures that the first consul holds the real power, effectively sidelining the other two.
Wow, so he's really pulling the strings here.
He solidifies his position as the true leader of France.
So within a remarkably short period, this guy goes from celebrated general to the most powerful man in France.
It really is a story of ambition, political maneuvering, and an incredible understanding of how to use force and public perception.
Totally, and that's just the beginning.
Oh, yeah. This intricate web of political maneuvering sets the stage for Napoleon's meteoric rise and the profound impact he would have not just on France, but on the entire world.
This is incredible.
So we're just getting started.
This is amazing.
It's going to be a wild ride.
All right, we need to take a quick break, but we will be right back to continue our deep dive into Napoleon, so don't go anywhere. Okay, so we just dove deep into Napoleon's cunning power grab.
We did.
It's mind-blowing how he managed to pull off this coup within a coup to become the true leader of France. But seizing power is one thing.
Right.
Governing's a whole other beast.
It is.
So what did Napoleon actually do with all this power?
Well, that's where we really start to see the duality of Napoleon, the reformer and the emperor. He was a man of contradictions, capable of great progress, but also of actions that seemed to contradict the very ideals he claimed to uphold.
Okay, so let's unpack those contradictions. Where do we see this duality play out most clearly?
Well, one of the most striking examples is the Napoleonic Code.
Okay.
A monumental legal achievement.
Yeah.
But it also reveals some of Napoleon's, shall we say, flexible interpretations of revolutionary ideals.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into this Napoleonic Code.
Okay.
What made it so revolutionary?
Well, imagine a legal system that just throws out centuries of feudal tradition.
Wow.
And establishes principles like equality before the law, freedom of religion, protection of property rights.
Okay.
That's the essence of the Napoleonic Code.
So a radical departure from the past.
Exactly. It was codifying the ideals of the French Revolution into a practical legal framework.
So it sounds like Napoleon, at least in this instance, was genuinely committed to enacting some of those core principles of the revolution.
Right.
But I'm guessing it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
You're right. The Napoleonic Code, while groundbreaking, also had its shadows.
Okay.
One of the most glaring contradictions is Napoleon's decision to reinstate slavery in the French colony.
Wow. That's a massive inconsistency. How could the man who championed equality before the law also condone slavery?
It's a question that historians continue to debate to this day.
Yeah.
Some argue that Napoleon was a pragmatist willing to compromise on his ideals for, economic or political gain.
Sure.
The sugar plantations in the colonies were incredibly profitable and powerful. Plantation owners lobbied heavily for the return of slavery.
So it was purely an economic calculation. He just sacrificed his principles for profit.
Well, it's not quite that simple.
Okay.
While economic factors undoubtedly played a role, Napoleon's own views on race and colonialism likely contributed to his decision as well.
So it's a much more complex issue than it appears on the surface.
It's a dark chapter in his story.
Yeah.
One that reveals the complexities and contradictions inherent in his character and his legacy.
It's a sobering reminder that even those who champion progress can also perpetuate injustice.
It is.
And the Napoleonic Code is a perfect example of this duality, a document that enshrines fundamental rights while also paving the way for the continuation of a horrific system of oppression.
It's this very tension that makes studying Napoleon so fascinating.
Right.
He forces us to grapple with the complexities of history, to acknowledge that even those who achieve great things are often flawed and capable of both profound good and terrible harm.
Absolutely. And speaking of complexities, we can't forget Napoleon's impact on America.
Oh, right.
The Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the United States,
huge,
was a direct result of Napoleon's ambitions in Europe.
It's incredible to think how events unfolding across the Atlantic could have such a profound effect on the destiny of America.
It's a testament to the interconnectedness of history.
Yeah.
Napoleon, preoccupied with his European conquests and needing funds for his military campaigns,
Yeah, he needed money.
saw an opportunity to offload this vast territory to Thomas Jefferson for a bargain price.
It was a decision that would have far-reaching consequences, shaping the future of both America and France.
So a single decision driven by ambition and circumstance can have ripple effects across time and continents.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. But before we get too far down that path, let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier. Napoleon the Emperor.
Ah, yes. This is where the story takes another dramatic turn.
Okay.
Napoleon, after years of consolidating his power and establishing himself as the undisputed leader of France, decides to make it official.
Okay.
In 1804, he crowns himself Emperor of the French.
Hold on, wait a minute. Didn't he come to power promising to uphold the ideals of the revolution?
He did.
Which explicitly rejected monarchy.
They did.
This seems like a blatant power grab, a complete betrayal of the principles he supposedly stood for.
It certainly seemed that way to many, including some of Napoleon's most ardent supporters.
Yeah.
The crowning was a highly symbolic act, a deliberate rejection of the revolutionary principles of liberty, equality, fraternity. It signified a return to the very system of absolute power that the revolution had sought to overthrow.
So I can imagine the outrage this must have caused among those who had initially embraced Napoleon as a champion of the revolution.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he pulled off this massive bait and switch, promising liberty but delivering empire.
Exactly. And this betrayal, this sense of disillusionment, is captured perfectly in the story of Beethoven and his Eroica Symphony.
Oh, yes. The tale of the symphony initially dedicated to Napoleon,
Yeah.
only to have the dedication furiously scratched out by the composer.
Yeah. It's a story that speaks volumes about the complex relationship between art politics and the shifting tides of history.
It does.
So Beethoven, a staunch supporter of the ideals of the French Revolution, initially saw Napoleon as a hero, a symbol of enlightenment and progress.
Right.
He poured his admiration and hope into his Third Symphony, dedicating it to the man he believed would usher in a new era of liberty and equality.
But then Napoleon goes and crowns himself emperor, shattering those hopes.
Yeah.
And revealing his true ambitions. I can only imagine Beethoven's fury when he heard the news.
I bet he was devastated.
It's like a personal betrayal, a shattering of an ideal.
Totally.
And that fury is palpable in the way Beethoven reportedly tore up the dedication page of the symphony, renaming it simply Eroica or Heroic.
Wow.
It was a symbolic gesture, a rejection of Napoleon's imperial aspirations, and a reclaiming of the symphony's original spirit of heroism, now divorced from the man who had betrayed those ideals.
Well, it's like a poignant reminder that even heroes can fall from grace, that power can corrupt even the most noble intentions.
It is.
And it speaks to the power of art to reflect, critique, and even challenge the political realities of the time.
It's a timeless theme, isn't it?
It is.
The seductive allure of power, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the inevitable consequences of betraying one's principles.
Yeah, and it's a theme that resonates deeply in Napoleon's story.
Absolutely.
A story that continues to captivate and challenge us centuries later.
It does.
We've been talking about Napoleon's rise to power, all these contradictions, his complex legacy.
Right.
But I'm still stuck on this idea of him being like a historical Rorschach test.
I know it's true how we view him, what we choose to focus on.
Exactly.
It says as much about us as it does about him.
It's like we're picking and choosing the parts of his story that we like,
Right.
The ones that fit our own preconceived notions, shaping him into a hero or a villain to suit our own narratives.
And that's where critical thinking becomes so crucial.
Yeah.
It's not about just accepting one version of history or another.
Right.
It's about engaging with multiple perspectives, acknowledging the complexities, and, wrestling with those uncomfortable truths alongside the celebrated achievements.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap of, oversimplifying history?
Right.
Turning complex figures like Napoleon into these one-dimensional caricatures.
Well, by embracing nuance, by asking challenging questions, and by being willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Okay.
Recognizing that history is rarely a neat and tidy story with a clear moral.
Right, it's messy.
It's messy. It's complicated. It's this tapestry woven from all these threads of ambition, idealism, compromise. Hypocrisy, even.
Yeah, it's like we're detectives piecing together a puzzle.
Right.
But with missing pieces and, conflicting clues.
Exactly. And the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know.
That's the truth.
But that's what makes history so endlessly fascinating.
It is.
It's this constant journey of discovery, this process of learning, unlearning, and relearning.
Yeah. And with a figure like Napoleon,
especially with Napoleon,
it forces us to confront some of the most fundamental questions about power, ambition, and the human condition.
It really does.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Napoleon's legacy in France today.
Right.
How is he viewed in his homeland, centuries after his reign?
Well, as Pascal Confrau from the French embassy pointed out, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
There's a sense of pride in Napoleon's accomplishments, especially his military victories and the impact of his reforms. But there's also this growing awareness of the darker aspects of his role.
Yeah.
particularly the reinstatement of slavery and his suppression of dissent.
It's interesting how perspectives can change over time, right? What might have been overlooked or celebrated in the past is now being critically examined.
That's the beauty of history. It's not static.
Right.
It's this ongoing conversation, a dynamic process of reinterpreting the past in light of new information and changing values.
And with someone like Napoleon,
Oh, yeah.
that conversation is sure to continue.
For generations to come, absolutely.
So as we conclude our deep dive into Napoleon Bonaparte, we leave you with this question.
Okay.
If you were living in France during his rise, would you have seen him as a hero, a tyrant, or something in between?
That's a great question.
And why? It's a question that challenges us to step outside of our own time and try to understand the choices people made in a different era with different pressures and perspectives.
And maybe by grappling with the complexities of the past, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the challenges we face in the present.
Well said. That's what these deep dives are all about, sparking curiosity, encouraging critical thinking, and making those connections between the past and the present.
I love it.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey into the life and legacy of Napoleon Bonaparte.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating journeys into history.